Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video and hope you guys had a great Christmas break. Today we are in Ottawa, the capital of Canada, and we're going to take a look at Canada's most popular drink, which is coffee. And so before we get started, let's go grab ourselves a cup of coffee from Canada's staple Tim Hortons first. That's much better. So many Canadians start their days off with coffee, but not only limited to Canadians, many people around the world start their days off with coffee. And so you see, coffee has become a necessity for many people, with a lot of people drinking 1, 2, or 3 or more cups of coffee every single day. And because of the law of supply and demand, something that we talked in our last video, if you haven't watched that out, you can check that right here on the link right over there. But because of the law of supply and demand, the more demand a country has for coffee, which is their consumers, how much coffee their consumers and their citizens consume, the more import they have from other countries. And if we take a deeper look at it, generally, coffee beans don't fall out of the sky. They're grown and nurtured in countries where land and climate is suitable for coffee bean growth. And so when we take all of these factors into account, it all leads to the tragedy of the commons. And so if you don't know what tragedy of the commons is, I'll let my friend John explain. He'll give you a couple insights about the tragedy of the commons. So take it away, John. So many of you guys probably know what the tragedy of the commons are, or at least you guys have heard of it. So I'm just going to be explaining it a little bit more. Essentially, the tragedy of the commons is regarding a shared resource or a publicly shared resource amongst everyone. But because of everyone's usage and self-interest of this resource, it quickly depletes it, becoming a tragedy for all. So one of the most well-known examples of the tragedy of commons is going to be overfishery. And so in this case, many individuals, corporations, and large companies, they fish a lot for their own profit, which is fine, but at some point, there's some excessive fishing. And so when people fish too much, more than their needed quota, it ends up endangering the species and the livelihood of fish, which becomes a tragedy for all. All right, thank you, John. And so now that we know what a tragedy of the commons is, we're going to take a deeper dive into the tragedy of coffee. And so as I said before, coffee is the most popular drink in Canada, with over 71% of our population drinking coffee on the daily. And to put that number into perspective, coffee is the number 1 followed by water, which is kind of concerning for our Canadian citizens, as that either means that we're drinking too much coffee or we're just not drinking enough water. Other than Canada, if we take a look to our south, our neighboring country, the United States, we'll see that 66% of their population drinks coffee every day. And if we take a look at it at an international level, 2.25 billion cups of coffee is consumed every single day. So you guys are probably taking a look at these numbers and thinking to yourselves how big the numbers sound. But you're also wondering, how do these numbers affect the tragedy of the commons? So on this one, I'm going to let my friend Joe explain. Hey everyone, so you're right. The problem doesn't really lie in the consumption of coffee, but rather the production of coffee in tropical countries such as Egypt, Ethiopia, and Indonesia. So our high demand for coffee produced from our high consumption of hot coffee, this demand pressures these growing countries, the growers of coffee beans, into producing more. And because of the high demand for coffee, many supplying and producing countries such as Brazil, Ethiopia, and Indonesia, they have to take a lot more steps and a lot more action in order to be able to satisfy and meet these demands. Overconsumption of coffee has also led to huge deforestation and habitat loss, leading to over 60% of the plant species being endangered. All of this stems from the self-interest of each producer, each country, and each individual, and all these factors lead to the depletion of the shared resource, which is coffee, becoming a tragedy for all. With all that being said, you guys are probably wondering what you guys can do to help resolve the problem. But unfortunately, there isn't really much you guys can do as common consumers, since our actions are just not as significant as those of the larger corporations and countries in this play. But nevertheless, each step matters and has an impact. So if you want to help out with this problem, the only thing you guys can really do is just to drink a little bit less coffee. And whether that's from 1 cup of coffee to 0 cups, or from 4 cups of daily coffee intake to 3 cups, every little step counts. So other than that, the only thing we can really rely on are the actions of the bigger players, such as countries and large corporations. As an importing country such as Canada and the United States, what we can do is we can set a cap and a limit on the imports of coffee beans, which will drastically reduce the demand for coffee beans. And without as much demand, the exporting and producing countries will have less of an incentive to produce coffee beans, which will ultimately make the problem a little bit better, and vice versa. So for the exporting and producing countries, what they could do is just simply not produce as many coffee beans, or just not use as many environmentally harmful methods such as deforestation and the use of harmful pesticides. Thank you so much for watching the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment how many cups of coffee you drink every day in the comments below. Until then, see you guys all in the next video.